Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Davis, and I am one of the instructors in geospatial technologies at Southern New Hampshire University. This is video 1 for assignment 3-2, and I will be showing you how to use and navigate Google Earth. So Google Earth is in your VDI. I'm going to go ahead and open my version of Google Earth, which should be the same as yours. And one of the things while it is opening, you have to use your login, your email, if you have your own copy. Google Earth is free. So I would encourage you, when you have a chance, to download Google Earth Pro onto your own computer. It's a nice little program to have on your computer. It's easy to use, and I hope that it's something like ArcMap that you'll continue to use after this class for your other classes and for your own personal use. Google Earth is one of those programs that is pretty nifty. It has a lot of functionality for basic map making, and it has a lot of information that you can use for research. Google Earth is one, it's created by Google, but it was partially created, partially funded, the Keyhole Markup Language, by the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA's investment company, and the investment branch of the company. So it's something that has been funded by intelligence communities and is supported by Google. The initial use for Google Earth, it was intended to be something to be used for video games. So you see that fruition now, but back in the early 2000s, late 90s, Google Earth, the creators who laid the foundation for Google Earth, were thinking of it as an immersive video game environment. So one of the things I'd like to cover is in this video is how to navigate in Google Earth, the types of information you can pull in Google Earth, how to measure space in Google Earth, and then how to actually organize and create data in Google Earth for maps. In the video that you watched previously, you learned about raster data, and in your previous assignments, previous readings, you've learned about vector data. In Google Earth, we'll kind of get to combine those. All the information that you see visualized in Google Earth from satellite imagery is in fact raster data, and the resolution is dependent on when the data was collected and by what instrument that data is collected. So when you zoom in to a certain area, so I'm going to go to Tucson, Arizona, and when you let it load, the things that you can pick up from the pictures is the resolution. If an item is smaller than that pixel cell, then the resolution is not small enough to pick up that individual item. So from this, it's difficult. As we pull it, it's difficult to pull out individual cars because the resolution from this particular area is it's not quite fine enough to pick it up. So as we zoom in to an area, you can see it'll update. You can get you can pick up more and more detail when you're looking in. As you can see, some of Google Earth has been rendered in 3 dimensions. So you have a lot of areas, particularly in the cities, that have been rendered in 3D that make it a very useful visualization tool. And you can also see in the bottom right hand corner here some information. It'll give you the elevation at ground level, and it'll give you the latitude and longitude values for where your mouse cursor is. Also, this should give you when the imagery was collected as well in the bottom right hand corner. So when you're looking, it'll show you what vintage this information is. And then one of the functionalities on Google Earth is you do have a historical marker. I'm going to go ahead and shut that out for now, but that tool here does let you look at historical spatial data. This tool here lets you look at different times of day. This will take you to Google Earth sky, Mars, or moon. So everything that I'm going to show you for Google Earth, you can in fact do in Google Earth sky, Mars, or moon. So for example, if I go to the moon, it'll take us to the same type of thing Google Earth is, just for the moon, and you can do a tour of Mars. So there's a lot of little nifty things on there. I'm going to go back to Earth, come back down to Earth. So how to navigate Google Earth? Well, if you left click on your mouse and hold it, you can drag and turn around the Earth. If you have a mouse, you can use the scroll button to zoom in and zoom out. And if you press down on the roller button, you can actually change the angle that you look at there. So you can look at the Earth at an oblique angle. So if you want to see the 3D rendering that they like to do in Google Earth, a little bit of the topography once it loads, you can change your angle that way. But if you're looking for a specific location, so I want to take us to Paris, I just type in this bar here to go to Paris, France, and if I search it, it'll fly me all the way to Paris. So if it's a known location in Google Maps, you can search it in Google Earth, and it'll take you directly there. So if you have the chance, if you have Google Earth downloaded, or if you're accessing it now in your VDI, I would like for you to search 3 or 4 different places just so you get the feel of how to use the navigation bar. It's much like Google Maps, but it'll take you anywhere. And some of the famous areas usually are 3D rendered. So if you want to go to, for example, New York City, it'll take you to New York. Oh. Let's see. Well, it's not taking me to New York, but I'm going to go drill down into Paris. And you see how it's rendered a lot of the buildings in 3 dimensions, so you can explore, Paris as it builds in. Now there's the Eiffel Tower. So, okay, so I'm going to try to go back to Arizona. Hopefully it'll connect to the server. If not, so it's not, for some reason the server's not connecting, so I'm going to go ahead and close my Google Earth Pro and go back in, make sure that it works. And we'll see if it'll connect to the server. If not, I'll just use my hard navigation tools. So I'm going to go to Arizona. So for some reason that's not working. That should work for you. I'm not sure why it's not connecting on my computer, but I'm going to go into the Phoenix area, which I'm going to go into the next demonstration on the tools that I want you to be able to know how to use for Google Earth, and that is to use this measurement tool. So in this measurement tool, we have options for line, path, and polygon. You also have circle, 3D path, and polygon, but I'm going to show you how to use line. So I'm going to zoom in to this field at what's it says? It says Morrison Ranch. And when I click on line, I'm just going to go from one end of the farm to the other end and click again. So it's left click, and then in the map length, it gives me a measurement that it's 0.49 miles, so almost half a mile. And I can have it in centimeters. I could have it in meters, kilometers. You could even have it in smoots, which I believe is named after a college student from one of the Ivy Leagues, and he was a shorter fellow in the early 20th century, and the smoots are his height, which I think he was somewhere in between 5'3" and 5'7", but his last name was Smoot. So that's where that comes from. It also gives you what direction it's heading. So for survey, what direction the line is and the heading for that. So if you need to measure something, it's as accurate as you are. So if you zoom in on my line, you see that it's not bad. It lines up pretty well. And then the path is another option that you can do. I'm going to have it in yards. So I'm going to clear the line. But if I want to do from this corner to this corner, and then to this corner, I can see that it is almost 1,700 yards, or almost almost a full mile. So this is the ruler. This is the ruler tool, and you can do line paths, and you can also do polygons. So if I'm interested in knowing the area of this farm, I can go from one corner to the next corner to the next corner, and these are just left clicks. And on my final left click, it already calculates it for me. So you don't need to double click or anything. You just don't click anymore. And it says that the perimeter is 1.91 miles and that it's almost 600,000 square meters. I'm going to switch it to acres so that I know that this farm is almost 150 acres and the perimeter is 2 miles. Now, if you dial in, you look in, you'll see that I'm a little off the border. So if you want to be as accurate as possible, you have to be much more, fine-tuned. And if you're zoomed into an area while you're creating, you can use your arrow keys to move up and down around the screen. So, for example, if I'm zoomed in here and I want to do another perimeter, it's hard to navigate because you rely on your left click to create and to move in ArcMap. So you can zoom out, but it's hard to move laterally or back and forth, but you can use your arrow keys to navigate back and forth to continue that drawing. So if you really, zoom in on your area, you can get much finer detail and be a little bit more accurate on the area, on the perimeter, for example, if you wanted to make a fence. So that's how you use the ruler function. If you need area, if you need the length of a path, or if you're hiking, you need to measure how long a trail is. Google Earth is a very good way to get that distance, or to estimate on the distance using the ruler tool. Now, if you want to create something that is more permanent, you can actually create data in Google Earth that you can share, that you can use for your own mapping purposes. So the best way to do that is to start by being very methodical in how you organize your data. So what I'm going to do is I am going to right click on my temporary places here, and I'm going to add a folder. This folder is going to be where I'm going to put all the data that I'm going to create. So I am just going to call this Mesa Farms. And in my description, farms in Mesa for mapping. So that if I come back to this, I'll be able to understand what it is I'm drawing, or what it is that I created. So when I click OK, I get this folder in here and then a brief description. So the first thing that I'm going to do is create point data. So you have these little markers up here on how to add different information. This pin cushion is for adding points. This rhombus is for adding polygons, and this is for adding lines. So all the things, all those different type of vector data that we talked about, you can add these in Google Earth. So for my purposes, I am going to add a point first. And what you need to remember is that you don't want to click anything in here until you place the point. So when you add the point, it throws it in the middle of the screen, and then you place it where you want it to go. So I'm going to put it here at this edge. I can zoom in and be a little bit more accurate. So if there is a specific marker that I want to place it on, so I'm going to just put it here on this, what looks like a shed. And it gives you the latitude and longitude of that point. And whatever you put in this name field, it's going to title it here. So right now it says untitled place mark. I'm just going to put Spots Doghouse. So I am just going to say that this is, a neighborhood dog's, home or you could put a shed, whatever you want to do. You don't have to zoom into this area for your purposes. Go to an area that you're familiar with, that you'd like to explore, find new information about, create new data, and build it there. I'm just doing it in Mesa, Arizona, or in the Phoenix area, because I grew up in that area. I'm familiar with what's around there. And then you have different things here. You have description, you have style, you have different information here, altitude. In your description, everything you put in here will be stored as attribute data for what you're creating. So if you want to put Spot's dog's house, you can also add attribute information, including dog breed, English Mastiff, food, he's fed beef 3 times a day, and age, you can put he's 3 years old, and then doghouse, material, particle board. So it's like all this information you can include in this attribute data, and it'll keep it. And you can share this information with other people by saving it as a KMZ file or a KML file, which I'll show you how to do at the end. Or you can create a map from this information. So we have all of this, we have all this attribute information, but in Google Earth, you could also add images. And all of this information that you're created, unless you choose to save it elsewhere, is saved on your computer, saved on your hard drive. If you have it downloaded on your computer, if you're on the VDI, it'll save it onto the VDI. So if I add an image, or add a link, you can add the image here with a URL, pull it off the internet, or you can add an image by browsing files in your computer to throw an image in there. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this and then click OK. And as you can see, this is added under the Mesa Farms. It's Spot's Doghouse. So if I go to Arizona, it's still not working. If I zoom all the way out, if I go all the way out to the world view, I'm working on something in Arizona, but now I'm working something in New Mexico, but I want to get back to Spot's Doghouse. I just simply click on Spot's Doghouse. It pulls up that information, but it takes me directly back to that spatial location. Okay, so if I click off it, I click on Spots, and all of that information that I input there is saved in that piece of data. So that's how you add point data. It's very similar how to add polygon and lines. So I'm going to show you how to add a polygon now. So I'm going to call this Morty's Farm, and I am going to draw a boundary around Morty's Farm. So I can be as accurate as I want. I'm just trying to do it quickly right now. The style, the area color right now is white. I can change it to any one of these colors or use RGB values. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it this color. And you see how you can't see anything underneath. If you go to the opacity value, I'm just going to type in 30, and you see how it's barely covered. So if I go to 60, it's a little more darker, but I can see underneath. You can change that opacity so that you can see what's underneath. So when I click OK, it'll save it, but I still want to add some stuff. So I'm going to say Morty, or what's in the farm, product is tulips, pesticide is, I'm just going to put it as sulfuric acid. Don't use that as a pesticide. It will kill everything. Last use for pesticide, October 11th, 2015. So if you are an environmental manager or something, you can use Google Earth to catalog all this information. Last site check, November 2018. So it's like all this information is included in the data that you create, and when you can change the style and color, and if you go to measurements, it'll also have that perimeter and area value. So if I want to know the acres, I can put, farm size is, going to the measurements, it's 80.2 acres. So I can put the farm size as 80.2 acres. And if I want to add latitude and longitude, I can put a point in the center of that farm and pull the latitude and longitude from it. Or you see, if I hold it over here, I can see the latitude and longitude in the bottom right-hand corner here to throw into my description. So when I click OK, that is added. So we have in Mesa Farms, we have Spot's doghouse, and we have Morty's farm, and all of that information is included. So if I click on the polygon, all of this information that we created is there. So the final thing that I'm going to show you in this video is how to add a line, much like Spot's doghouse, much like the polygon. I'm going to actually just quickly create another polygon, show you how to do it one more time. So you just go to this plus, add polygon, make sure it's under your Mesa Farms, click add polygon, and we're going to call this Stacy's farm. And I'm going to go ahead and draw around it. And so you see, well, it's not quite as accurate as you want it to be, so you can move it to be a little bit more accurate if you want to. If your points weren't right, you can press the right click and it'll delete the last point that you built. So you see when I right click, it removes the last point. So I can continue, I can start over. Oh, it's bad. Right click and it'll remove it. And there you can continue to add to make it a little more accurate. Once you're happy, stop clicking left click, because each time you do a left click, it'll add a point. And you can add your description. Stacy, or the farm product, alfalfa, last checked October 2016 or 2017, and you can include all that information that you included in the other one. You can change the style if you want these to be two different colors. You can switch it in here. Change the, you can change the transparency, the opacity. You can change the line color. You still have your measurements. So we know that this is 122 acres. You can add that into our description. So when we click OK, now we have Spot's doghouse, Morty's farm, Stacy's farm, and that's all saved under Mesa Farms. When I'm creating data specifically for ArcMap, I will organize it so that all my polygons are in one file, all my points are in one file, all my lines are in one file, because it makes it easier to convert it into ArcMap, because they use single feature type files for shapefiles and for geodatabases typically. So that makes it easier back and forth. But for this purposes, I want all my data in my Mesa farm, so when I open it, I can go right back to it. So the final thing is the line, or the path, that I'm going to show you how to create in Google Earth. And all of these are in Google Earth, and you can save them so that they can be shared. The KMZs can be shared by email. Can be shared by USB, permanent data, and you can add images if you want. You could add from the web. You can add from your folders. But what I'm going to do here is draw a path from Stacy's farm all the way to Spot's doghouse. I'm going to change the line width so that it's a little easier to see. I'm just going to go to 5, so you see how it's a little bit thicker. It's still white line. I'm just going to say that, this is the walking path from Stacy's farm to doghouse. So when I click on this line, that's going to be the title. And also in my legend, that's going to be the title. If I go to measurements, I can see that, it's almost a mile walk, or it's, almost 1,700 yards. I'm just going to keep a mile, and I'm just going to say distance, 0.96 miles. And when I add that, the line will be there. Now, if I click on the line, you see walking path, Stacy's farm to doghouse, distance 0.96 miles. That's all useful information, particularly if you're sharing it with someone. Now, from this farm, I'm going to create, from Morty's farm, I'm going to create another path. I'm going to just say his home is on this end, and he has to walk to here, this distance to get to it. So what I'm going to call that is walking path, Morty's farm to doghouse. And you see how quickly this information can be created, and you have all of these tools to pull out information. So in the description, I'm just going to put distance is 0.44 miles. So that is how you create information in Google Earth, how you navigate in Google Earth. The final thing that I'm going to show you how to do is to save this information so that it's permanent. So I'm just going to go to Save Place As. And then I have all of these from my professional work. So I'm just going to save it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it Mesa Farms, save it as KMZ. And when you save it, you should be able to just double click on that, and it'll open up Google Earth and go directly to this spot. And I'll show you in the following video. But you need to save it if you want to be able to access it, if you want to be able to email this file, and if you want to be able to share it. All right, thank you for listening, and I look forward to showing you what's next in video 2.